So I was speaking with some friends earlier this week, other rabbis, when one mentioned this idea that was just fascinating that I wanted to share with all you. In these times, it's even more precious of an insight than normal, as its subject matter has become hotly desired around the world. Seriously, it's a coveted substance at this point, hard to find and quick to be used. What am I talking about? You see that thing sitting on the table next to Hazan there? I'm talking about Purell, the instant hand sanitizer. Why, though? Because lately, some rabbis have been talking about Purell's connection to Judaism and what we can learn from it. Now, let me clarify. I don't actually believe there's a Jewish connection to Purell, but I love the rabbinic imagination, even when it's meant as a joke, and I wanted to share with you the ideas being circulated because the conversation is important and relevant. You see, if you imagine Purell as a Hebrew word, it would be broken into two parts, Pur and El. Pur, as in Purim, refers to casting lots, gambling, throwing dice. El, of course, is a name for God. So Purell, in this case, would mean something like God's dice. If we're all searching high and low for Purell to keep us healthy and safe, then what we are banking on is chance, luck, or chaos. What do you think about that? On the one hand, this idea of life's randomness, the thought that our destiny is simply determined by the roll of God's dice, while interesting and beautiful for our times, it does not provide comfort. But on the other hand, it does seem like a perfect analogy for our world today, in which the spread of illness feels uncontrollable and the world is chaotic. So even though this is not actually a Hebrew word, let me clarify that, not actually a Hebrew word, I would like us to take these rabbinic imaginings and discuss the implications of what it means to feel like life is beyond our control. Because in times like these, that's when people most long for assurance, for answers, for reasons. We don't want to think of life as a toss of God's dice, but somehow it feels appropriate. Just this morning, I was asked by a congregant why God was doing all of this, as if there could be an answer that we would find satisfactory. Searching for answers to unknowable questions is nothing new, though. During times of illness and loss, it's common for religious leaders to search for answers to people's questions. Why? Why now? Why us? Why here? In a 2009 New York Times article titled "Finding a Scapegoat When Epidemics Strike," author Donald McNeil Jr. wrote that in the face of horrible and rampant anti-Semitism during the Black Death, Pope Clement VI issued an edict or bull saying Jews were not at fault. He did not, of course, blaspheme by blaming God, nor did he blame mankind's sins, I should note. The Pope picked a target particularly tough to take revenge upon, a misalignment of Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. You heard that right. The Pope, in an effort to stop scapegoating and give people an answer for why they were being struck by the Black Death, made an official statement claiming the cause of these deaths was planetary disarray. And if this doesn't evoke images of a toss of God's dice, I don't know what does. The Pope basically said the universe was out of order and there was nothing we could do about it. And there is Jewish thought that would support this idea of life as random chance, as we're taught that a great rabbi claimed that life, children, and sustenance depend not on merit, but rather on mazel. Mazel, meaning luck or stars. But even if life and death, sickness and health, love and despair are all simply a roll of God's dice, we must remember that in Judaism, we believe beauty can come from this unknowable chaos. I know I've mentioned it recently, but we're told that in the very beginning of the Torah, that before creation, the earth was filled with chaos and disorder. Oh, how relevant for our lives right now. And Josh Franklin argues that because one of the products of creation was order, we can learn that God created a neat system of life upon the expanse of chaos and disorder, and therefore, as we live life, we cleave to the structure and order that guides us through twists and turns, we must never forget to let go once in a while, to return to a state of chaos and disorder. For only then can we become partners in creation, rebuilding what is broken and giving meaning to what lays in disarray. Well, we have come into a time when life is again chaotic. With this understanding, though, the disorder becomes comforting. It becomes the beginning of creation. It becomes an opportunity for something new. In this way, if life is just a roll of God's dice, we are still able to respond to the haphazardness of the world with a purposefulness of our lives. There's a reading I shared with the board yesterday night as we met over Zoom, which speaks to this very idea. It says, yes, the space between us is scary. It is odd and at odds, an area unoccupied where all things exist. But the space between us is also liminal, a threshold between old and new. And so in this space, anything is possible. To grow without gathering, to connect without congregating, to create without convening, which means the space between is sacred. Yes, the space between us is scary, but scared and sacred are so very close, and we need to make space for both. The chaos, the unknown, the liminal, in-between places offer so much possibility. In this way, the idea of God's dice is not a theological end, but rather a starting point for creation. Maybe this speaks to the idea that life is like a game of cards. The hand you are dealt may be determined by the roll of God's dice, by fate, by chance. But what matters is the way you play it. That part is up to you. That's where your free will comes in. That's where you take control and turn the chaos into creation. Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik discusses this idea in his conversation about fate and destiny, claiming that against your will you are born, and against your will you will die. But with your free will do you live as a creator who lives autonomously. Rav Soloveitchik asserts that according to Judaism, man's mission in this world is to turn fate into destiny, to turn an existence that is passive and influenced into an existence that is active and influential. So we don't wait to see where God's dice may land in order to determine how we move forward. We take whatever roll of the dice life gives us and turn it into something meaningful that we can be proud of. In these uncertain and unprecedented times, that means it's up to us to continue to make life meaningful, not simply for ourselves, but also for those whom we care about, and for the strangers and neighbors we encounter, hopefully at this point only virtually or from a distance, and for all those who are subject to the roll of God's dice. We can sit at home and be sad, or I guess we can also go out and be reckless. Or we can find our own way to connect without physical closeness. We can decide that even in this new reality, we are taking control of how we bring our life meaning. We can choose to wake up with a smile. We can offer gratitude for all those striving to help us through this. We can call our friends and family on the phone. We can type an email or make someone a card. You can write them a real letter, send them food or a package for entertainment. We can make opportunities to cultivate our inner world, to meditate, to appreciate, to think and write and share. In an effort to influence others and make the world a better place, there is so much that is within our control. What are you going to do with this time you have? How are you going to take control of your life and your part amidst the chaos? For those who will be joining our Zoom call tomorrow morning as part of our Shabbat morning service, we'll look more deeply into these Jewish ideas and the role of fate versus free will. For the rest of you, I hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction to the subjects, that I've planted a seed that can sprout over the next few weeks, or at the very least, that I've given you something interesting to think about the next time you reach for a bottle of Purell. Shabbat Shalom. Hazan, we are back. We turn now to page 282 in Mishkan Tefillah, 282. We will be doing the Aleinu